Loading complete.
Alright, welcome to the show. This is netGAZZETTE.com. My name is Mick Mayo, I'm your host. This is episode 5 of our show. Please jump back and take a look at the other videos, episodes 1 through 4 if you haven't already. Otherwise, welcome back, I guess. Well, it's been a busy week. Lots happening. Firstly, I'll make a quick apology for pulling what was to be episode 5 from YouTube. It was a disaster after me having posted it after some 50 hours without sleep. Yeah, we don't do that. Alright, so that said, this is episode 5. It's going to be, well, before we get into that, welcome to the new subscribers to the website. There's 60 or 61 subscribers now at last check, so we're picking up 5 or so a day. The site's only been online for a couple of weeks, so that's a great outcome. Keep it up, tell your friends, tell your family. The more traffic we get across the site, the more the word spreads. The word being knowledge. Knowledge is key. The more knowledge that we have, the better decisions that we can make. Alrighty, not going to do any news or anything like that. There's plenty of that on the site, so jump over to netGAZZETTE.com and check out all the latest news. We've added some new features to the site. There's the ability to upload files now, so if you have a news story of your own, interesting photographs or videos, anything like that, feel free to make use of the upload facility. Also, go ahead and feel free to comment on stories and in general make comments across the site. I notice of 61 new users, not a single comment. Either I'm doing everything right, I doubt that, or you guys are a little shy, so step up to the plate, say something. I won't bite. Any feedback, or whether it be criticism or encouragement, doesn't matter. I'll take it all on board anyway. Okay, alright, World War III could be just around the corner, folks. We've just had a statement this week by the Pope. I'll just bring the site up. Actually, I've only just posted the story to the site, so I haven't got a hard copy in front of me. Safe to say, we all know he's been trotting around the Gold Coast. He's been trotting around the United States of America for the past week or so. Bit of a ceremony here, ceremony there. Wave the old smoky pot here and wave the old smoky pot there. Bunch of secret stuff, secret elite stuff. Alright, here we go. So, nations are drowning in unparalleled levels of debt. Fears of economic calamity are growing, and global leaders such as Pope Francis are warning that the world has entered the, quote, last times, end quote, and is at the beginning of, quote, a peace meal, end quote, Third World War. Well, make of that what you will. Cryptic as always. He goes on to say the real agenda of the globalist elite through all these sustainable development and social justice programs is to create a new global state, says Paul McGuire, a Fox News and History Channel commentator and co-author of the Babylon Code, solving the Bible's greatest end-time mystery. There's not a lot to solve. Take a look at Revelations, it's pretty clear. We read in the book of Revelation that the last days of Babylon will return as a born-again world government, religion and economic system. What is happening now with the United Nations is Babylon rising again before our very eyes. Alright, so that's in mainstream these days. So that should be an indication to everybody as to just how close we're getting. So I'm going to dedicate the rest of this episode. We're going to cut to a quick break here shortly. I've got about a minute of film to go. So, when we come back from the break, we'll get stuck into basically a show I put together around World War III and how it will play out, I believe. All right. So once again, welcome to the show all. Thanks for joining. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check us out on social media, Google+, Twitter, Facebook. We're on them all. We're on Pinned as well, Pinterest. We've also got a couple of magazines there on Flipboard. So as I said earlier, we have a new feature on the site to enable subscribers to upload videos, documents and the like straight to the site. Okay, all right. We'll cut to a quick break, and then I'll be back. Take care. Stick around. It's gonna get good.
And airports, one way or another. Extreme. From the crazy to the deadly, the magnificent to the terrifying. Incredible engineering and astonishing human stories. These are the world's most extreme. Airports. Connecting the world from the Caribbean to Alaska, and Nepal to the South Pole.
In so many parts of the world, the aircraft is the only way to get in and out.
Airports bring continents and people together. Their extreme engineering. An ice airport rebuilt every year. A runway squeezed between skyscrapers. A landing strip carved into mountains.
The main hazard, it's the airport itself.
Usually the reason for an extreme airport is there was no other place to put it.
They can be launch pads for air races, tourist attractions for thrill seekers, amazing locations, and extraordinary lives. Now keep your seatbelts fastened for the 10 most extreme airports on the planet. At 10, we're in the Caribbean, for the airport where you're closest to the jets. The Princess Juliana Airport on the island of St. Martin. The planes fly in just 40 feet overhead. You can't get closer than this. Landing is extreme enough. Here on St. Martin's Mayo Beach, sunbathing is a spectator sport.
When the big planes come in, they land directly over the heads of the people on the beach. It's staggering. It's like standing right at the end of the runway at JFK, but you're in your bathing suit.
On St. Martin, there's so little flat land that none of it can be wasted on a wide airport perimeter. And this lack of space is a problem across the Caribbean. Tiny Saba Airport has the shortest commercial landing strip in the world. St. Bart's forces planes to skim over a street before setting down. Or not.
Dude, that guy's got to stop.
But Princess Juliana reigns supreme. It's a full international airport running straight off the beach.
You've got this beautiful azure sea, you've got this wonderful island, all the lushness, and you've got to concentrate on putting her down on this postage stamp of a runway, or at least that's what it looks like when you're making your initial approach.
The landings are shockingly close, just 40 feet up.
Jump up and grab
But
the wheel.
takeoff is where things get serious. The jet engines power up just 200 feet from the fence.
It's no wonder these nuts haven't got their kite sails and whatnot down.
A wave of 38-degree air and exhaust gas hits the beach at 50 miles per hour. The speed of a tropical storm. Unsuspecting holidaymakers are blown away by the power.
You're talking about a 747 where every engine is producing 50,000 pounds of thrust.
But some holidaymakers actually embrace the engines.
We're gonna get our asses kicked here. Hell yeah.
Princess Juliana Airport has created a unique, dangerous, extreme sport.
Here we go.
Fence surfing. Some hang 5, others wipe out.
Oh, that's gotta hurt.
But no one forgets the Princess Juliana Airport, whether you were in the plane or 40 feet beneath it.
World War III in brief. A 3 World War scenario was developed several decades ago. 2 World Wars have already been achieved, and the 3rd and final World War envisions an attack on Iraq, Iran and/or Syria as being the trigger to set the entire Middle East into fiery conflagration. Once America is firmly entrenched into the Middle East, with the majority of her first-line units, North Korea is to attack South Korea. Then, with America's forces stretched well beyond the limit, China is to invade Taiwan. This will usher in the start of World War III. World War, a definition. What constitutes a world war? How many countries need to be involved? And who decides at which point a number of regional skirmishes can be grouped together and called a world war? At the time, who called the official start of World War I and World War II? And you'll notice that although the term World War III is freely used in the alternative press and on the internet, all the major news networks have stoically avoided using any phrase reminiscent of World War. We live in a world of positives, don't we? Positive reinforcement. Back up a negative with a positive. Since it's difficult to find a definition for an event which has only happened twice in modern history, here is my attempt to answer the question, what constitutes a world war? A world war is a military conflict spanning more than 2 continents in which at least 20 major countries participate in an attack against a common enemy, and which has the attention of the man in the street due to the significant loss of life. With that definition, we can agree that World Wars I and II were in fact world wars. Both wars involved some degree of participation from most of the world's then existing countries: Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United States and the Soviet Union. We can also agree that we are very close to achieving World War III. The only requirement left to fulfill the start of World War III is that of a military conflict spanning more than 2 continents. As soon as Israel attacks Palestine, or North Korea attacks South Korea, or the US or China invades Taiwan, we will have the next World War well underway. World War III, the timeline. These are, I believe, the stages of the planned Third World War. Firstly, the prelude, the events leading up to the start of the World War III, including September 11, 2001. Act 1, the Middle East, widespread conflict to bring the entire region into the flames of war, possibly triggered by Iran or militants in Pakistan using North Korean supplied nuclear arms. The first scene in this act is the US invasion of Iraq on March 20, 2003. Act 2, Israel at war. Against her Arab neighbours, possibly Palestine, a Palestinian state will be established, so that all Israelis will be fully separated from Palestinians. Listen out for the mention of a 7-year treaty to be confirmed by a world leader. Probably Obama, maybe the Pope. Only for Israel to viciously attack Palestine shortly thereafter. That one's coming. Act 3, Far East. Hair-raising nuclear confrontation that threatens mankind's existence. Includes China invading Taiwan and a nuclear eruption on the Korean Peninsula. Act 4, erosion of confidence in the system. So severe, citizens will be panicked into giving up liberties and constitutional form of government, that which is left. The plan calls for the dissolution of the US Constitution, triggered by a significant enough terrorist attack. The ultimate intent is to produce or introduce a global government and one world religion. Act 5, the collapse of the US and other Western economies and morals. Act 6, the significant population reduction using natural and man-made disasters. Then comes the curtain. Who knows when that'll be. Alright, basically they're the sections that I've broken the following program down into. So we'll cut to another quick break, I think. But just before we do, just read this one last section here. Both biblical prophecy and the Illuminati plan state that Israel is the key. The Third World War is planned to begin when Israel goes to war against her Arab enemies. Then and only then will all the other elements begin to occur, and they will do so in rapid succession. The plan is to have one disaster following another in such rapid succession that before people can mentally and emotionally handle one disastrous news event, they will be hit with another. It is also accurate to say that until all the elements of World War III are in place, the plan will not commence. While it would be naive to suggest a specific timeline for the events leading up to and including World War III, We do know that the plans for World War III are well advanced. Our leaders involved in this secret plan are waiting only for the right signal before all-out war begins. We are in the last stages of the preparation. We are in the last stages of the preparation to globalise the world. That the Masonic New Age Christ can appear to receive all the political and economic power of the world's rulers. This is the Illuminati plan and the biblical prophecy. Revelations 17:12 through 17. In the words of Peter Lemessurier, author of the Armageddon script, the script is now written, subject only to last-minute editing and stage direction. The stage itself, albeit in darkness, is almost ready. Dawn in the pit, the subterranean orchestra is already tuning up. The last minute walk-on parts are even now being filled. Most of the main actors, one suspects, have already taken up their roles. Soon it will be time for them too to come on stage, ready for the curtain to rise. The time for action will have come. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats and welcome on stage the players of this screenplay, World War III. World War III statistics. For a detailed look at World War III statistics, including the running cost of World War III, the number of lives lost in the countries involved in World War III, please see our World War overview. I'll provide links on the website probably, rather than on YouTube. And obviously as events unfold, we'll make additions to this text. All right, so we'll cut to a break there, and we'll come back and take a look at the prelude, which will be the events leading up to World War III. All right.
Pole.
It's so cold, it's so remote, it's almost like being on another planet.
This runway is built from scratch every year.
It's a hard, just cruel environment.
77 degrees south, just 800 miles from the pole. If your destination is the South Pole, this is probably your airport.
When the door opens up, you walk outside and you see, this is not New York, this is not LA, this is, Antarctica.
Hey, don't forget to mention that the
There's these giant volcanoes and mountains around, ice everywhere. It's a pretty crazy experience.
John Cassano is an atmospheric scientist whose work depends on studying the poles. He needs to journey to Antarctica to survey its weather and climate. He has been coming here for 20 years.
The runway is completely essential to what we do.
He is one of 1,200 people who live and work at McMurdo Scientific Station at any one time.
This is the main Antarctic base for the United States. This is a high-value, critical research institution in the most inhospitable continent on the world.
Oh yeah, some might say the
For
end
half
of
the year,
world.
food and equipment are brought in by boat. Until the seasons change. The sea begins to freeze over. By early spring, the base is then 65 miles from open water. The only way in or out is by air. So, a runway is built. For 30 years, that has been David Bresnahan's job, to keep the airport open.
Well, the unique thing about the runway is it's built on about 8 feet of natural sea ice.
Not to mention the
Every
alien
year,
base.
David and his team transform a rough field of the newly frozen sea ice. They need to create a 10,000-foot strip strong enough to withstand the immense weight of a fully loaded plane. They've got to get it right. Because the planes out here are really heavy.
You're telling me you're landing
That
that
ice
thing
has to hold a
on
fully
8
loaded carrier
feet
weighing
of
200
sea
tons.
ice. Bullshit.
I'm sitting on the plane and thinking about it. I go, who would
Fucking
land
thing
a
that
plane on
goes
sea ice?
straight
It's
through
crazy.
into the drink, mate.
2,600 feet of water lie beneath. Crack
Yeah.
the ice, and you could be
Plus
dead in
the
seconds.
fucking military base lies underneath.
Landing may be
Steel
dangerous,
reinforced.
but even reaching the sea ice runway is in doubt. Scientists at the South Pole rely on the planes to bring them their supplies. But this is Antarctica. The weather can change in an instant. And if a blizzard hits, it's a whiteout.
They ought to rename
You
it
can't see where the
Spookville.
horizon is, and you can't tell what's up or down because you don't know where you are. You just feel like you're floating in space.
When the weather gets this severe, it is too dangerous for planes to even attempt to land. Instead, they must fly 2,000 miles back to where they came from.
That's called the boomerang. The next closest runway to
In
McMurdo
other words,
is
when,
where you took off
when
from
something's
in
above
New
the
Zealand.
ice that they're not supposed to see.
The sea ice
they boomerang
runway.
them, they turn them around.
For the 5 months before it melts, it's the world's most remote airport.
New Area
Next up,
51.
carved into the mountains of Nepal, there's a rugged runway. that is-
Okay, welcome back again. Let's kick this off. This is part 2 of World War III, before the start, the events leading up to World War III. September 11, 1990. President George Bush Sr. gives a speech to the joint session of US Congress entitled "Toward a New World Order." That is a quote, people. July 12, 2001. A full 2 months before the September 11 attack, a Russian expert, Tatiana Korogina, a senior research fellow in the Institute of Macroeconomic Researchers, subordinated to Russian Ministry of Economic Development, warned of an attack in America. Besides bombs and missiles, there are other kinds of weaponry, much more destructive ones. The US is engaged in a mortal economic game. There is a shadow economy, shadow politics, and also a shadow history, known to conspirologists. I love that word. There are unseen forces acting in the world, unstoppable for most powerful countries and even continents. There are international, super-state and super-government groups. In accordance with tradition, the mystical and religious components play extremely important roles in human history. One must take into account the shadow economy, shadow politics and the religious component while predicting the development of the present financial situation. Shadow financial activities of $300 trillion are hanging over the planet. At any moment, they could fall on any stock exchange and cause panic and crash. The US has been chosen as the object of financial attack because the financial centre of the planet is located there. The effect will be maximal. The strike waves of economic crisis will spread over the planet instantly and will remind us of the blast of a huge nuclear bomb. This speech has proven precedent given the state of the global economy. in 2009. Here we are in 2015, and believe me, things have got far worse. September 11, 2001. 11 years to the day after President Bush's speech, the World Trade Center and the Pentagon are attacked. 11 years, 9/11, September 11. Anyway, September 13, 2001. Deputy Defense Secretary Paul Wolfowitz says the retaliation would be continued until the roots of terrorism are destroyed. These people try to hide. They won't be able to hide forever. They think their harbours are safe, but they won't be safe forever. It's not simply a matter of capturing people and holding them accountable, but removing the sanctuaries, removing the support systems, ending states who support terrorism or ideologies other than that the United States of America holds. October 11, 2001, Tom Brokaw announces the world has now formed into the New World Order. That's how these Yanks just announce things. Like anyone's listening. October 26, 2001. President Bush signs legislation into law that gives federal government dictatorial powers and severely, if not fatally, erodes individual liberties and rights. That's where the American Constitution began to cease to exist. November 2001, January 2002. Bush foreign policy and security advisors, including Richard Pearl, Paul Wolfowitz, Condoleezza Rice, say Saddam poses the greatest danger to the US and should be the next target in the war on terrorism. Unnamed diplomatic and Pentagon sources say through press reports that the CIA and Defense Department are making plans for an Iraqi military campaign. Remember guys, this is back in 2002. The President remarks that Saddam will find out the consequences of refusing to allow United Nations weapons inspectors to return to Iraq, as if that had anything to do with it. December 5, 2001. Members of Congress, John McCain, Richard Shelby, Jesse Helms, Henry Hyde, Harold Ford Jr., Joseph Lieberman, Trent Lott, Benjamin Gilman, and Sam Brownback, Yellow Tongue, send President Bush a letter urging military action against Iraq. January 29, 2002, Bush, in his State of the Union address, lists Iraq, Iran and North Korea as constituting an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world. By seeking weapons of mass destruction, these regimes pose a grave and growing danger, only to America. February 2002. Vice President Dick Cheney prepares to visit the Middle Eastern nations of Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Turkey and Kuwait, all of which border Iraq. On Cheney's trip, Bush remarks, "There's nothing like looking somebody in the eye and letting them know that when we say we're going to fight terror, we mean it." Also in February, on a trip to Japan, Bush reportedly tells the Japanese Prime Minister, "We'll attack Iraq. We'll do it definitely. Watch this drive." I mean, he's a psychopath. March 11 to 13, 2002, as Cheney travels on his Middle East trip, the leaders of Turkey and Jordan, two scheduled stops on the Vice President's travel agenda, warn a US attack on Iraq could destabilise the region. Cheney first arrives in London, where British Prime Minister Tony Blair pledges support for expanding America's war against terrorism to other nations. Jordan's King Abdullah meets with Cheney and states publicly that he does not support a US strike against Iraq. March 14, 2002. President Bush gives his first press conference since 9/11 and says all options are on the table, including nuclear weapons, to confront states that threaten to use weapons of mass destruction. Fight fire with fire, eh? Like kids in the playground. Saddam Hussein is a problem, and we're going to deal with him. Yeah, well, that worked out just champion, didn't it? Couldn't have fucked it up more if you tried. I mean, honestly, if you sat down and planned to fuck something up, you couldn't do it as well as the Americans fucked up the Iraq War. Unbelievable. Unbelievable that anyone, any leader of the free world would pay any attention to anything that the Americans say, do, or portray themselves as being. You got to suffer from the same form of psychotic illness. Only a psychopath could look at what has been the result of a 10-year military campaign and consider it any form of success. May 24, 2002, the 6 members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who are the highest ranking members of the US Armed Forces, publicly criticised the President's desire for a swift strike against Iraq. The military commanders expressed fears that an early invasion would result in many American casualties, and that a cornered Saddam Hussein would not hesitate to use biological or chemical weapons, neither of which he had. It'll all come out in the end. Truth has a way of doing that. July 9, 2002. Bush tells reporters, "It is the stated policy of this government to have a regime change in Iraq, and we'll use all the tools at our disposal to do so." September 2002. On numerous occasions, former UN Iraqi Weapons Inspector Scott Ritter criticises the Bush administration for its Iraq policy. Ritter maintains that Saddam's military capability is negligible and Bush wants to invade Iraq for political purposes. He was right on the money. August 18, 2002. Richard Pearl is quoted in a Washington Post story by political reporter Diana Milbank, headlined "The White House push for Iraqi strike is on hold." The subhead reads, "Waiting to make case for action allows invasion opponents to dominate debate." Timing is everything when you do this. If you launched a public campaign too far in advance and nothing followed, that would raise questions and fuel a debate that would not be helpful to the administration. If you join the debate now, but don't act for months, you pay a worse price. Everything's a psyop to these people. Some sort of game. October 1, 2002. Within hours of the Blix announcement, President Bush reacts negatively to the agreement reached between Iraq and weapons inspectors. "We're just not going to accept something that is weak," he said. Bush urges the UN to put some calcium in the backbone of an alternative resolution for dealing with Iraq. On an alternative congressional resolution drafted by Senators Biden and Lagarde of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Bush says, "I don't want a resolution that ties my hands. What I won't accept is something that allows Saddam Hussein to continue to lie, deceive the world," Bush said. I'm just not going to accept something that is weak. It's not worth it. The United Nations must show its backbone, and will work with members of the Security Council to put a little calcium in there. Put some calcium in the backbone, so this organisation is more likely to keep the peace as we go down the road. Certainly ominous. Alrighty. Next will be Act 1, which will be Baghdad Invaded. But we're going to cut to break. Before that, you can hear old Fruit Ninja flying over the top of the studio. Get the spooks flying over the studio every day these days, day and night. Helicopters, Cessnas, Caravans, Learjets. I guess whatever they can rent for the day. Alrighty.
Just lift the nose off. There's 150. Airborne. Safely climbing. Gear selected on. Gears up. Lights out. Now level 40,000 feet. We are clear. Unrestricted descent. Overbanking. AG. Pulling down. Idle. Leaving 40,000 for 10,000. Lead looks good. Weather looks beautiful. So we're now level 10,000 feet. Low level checks are complete. Lead's jet looks good from 30 feet. We're clear for low level and now descending. Low height water set, 250 feet. Throttle set, 420 knots. 3G around the corner. Looking ahead now, check the valley's clear. Weather's good, valley is clear. Leads through. Quick check either way. Now we're cleared to the left hand side, 4G around the corner. Speed now, set 450 knots. Entering the McCunliffe Loop, North Wales. Hard bank to the left, lining up the overbank to the right. Overbanking, 5G over the top, speed now 420 knots. Back down 250 feet. Valley wall flashing past the left hand side. And shortly to enter into the Lake District, now back down to 250 feet. Hard left turn, the lead 6 o'clock is clear, the weather looks good ahead, lining up the valley. And speed's now coming up, 480 knots. Positioning for the overbank. Waiting for the lead. There goes the lead, and overbanking, 5G over the top. Throttles back as we descend back into low level. Low height warner, reset, and throttles idle. Height 500 feet descending. 400, 350 checks, 300, level 250 feet. Lead 6 o'clock is clear. Quick fuel check, fuel's good, for Joker 1. Okay, crossing right to left on the lead. Approaching the north of the Lake District this time. Hard right turn now, through the valley, 3G. Speed stable at 420. Height 250 feet, through the M6 pass, slight over bank, throttles back, allow the nose to come down, maintaining 250 feet. Quick check to the left, is clear. Stable on a heading of 360, wings level. Approaching the north of the Lake District now. Carlisle's just on the nose. 6 miles, weather looks good for the pullout. One last check of the fuel before return to Coningsby. Fuel is good at 1.6. Okay, recovery checks complete. Easing out. Now level 10,000 feet. Lead's jet looks good. Panels are checked. The QFE is set for RAF Coningsby 1012, recovering runway 25. Now in the descent, we're cleared to 1,000 feet for the circuit. Here we are positioned RAF Coningsby runway 25. Waiting for the lead to brake to the left. There goes the lead. And I'm full backstick, 6G. Speed 300. 250, 200, down comes the gear. 3 Ds, 3 greens, I am clear to land runway 25. Over the thresholds. Main wheels down, throttles idle. Brakes are good. Onto the chocks, looking for the marshal signal. Brakes come on, throttles to idle. Rockstar 2 on flight, shutting down. Approaching the North of the Lake District now. Carlisle's just on the nose. 6 miles, weather looks good for the pullout. One last check of the fuel before return to Coningsby. Fuel is good at 1.6. Okay, recovery checks complete. Easing out. Now level 10,000 feet. Police jet looks good. Panels checked. The QFE is set for RF Coningsby 1012, recovering runway 25. Now in the descent, we're cleared to 1,000 feet for the circuit. Here we are positioned RF Coningsby runway 25. Waiting for the lead to brake to the left. There goes the lead. And I'm full backstick 6G. Speed 300, 250, 200.
Ой, что-то мы засиделись, братцы, не пора ли нам разгуляться? Русь молодая, силы немерено, дайте коня мне да добрый меч. Ратью пойдем да погоним ворога, Русь молодая, сердцу дорога. Да не пристало нам сидеть по хатам, дайте коня мне да добрый меч. Было это, братцы, давным-давно, черные силы пришли войной, а мы не знали, не ожидали, жили, любили, детей рожали. И 40 тысяч сороков Русь не видала таких врагов, а мы не знали, не ожидали, жили, любили, детей рожали. И полыхнули терема до хаты, бабы плачут да малые ребята, а мужики все брат за брата вышли за родину воевать. Ой, что-то мы засиделись, братцы, не пора ли нам разгуляться? Русь молодая, силы немерено, дайте коня мне да добрый меч. Ратью пойдем да погоним ворога, Русь молодая, сердцу дорога. Да не пристало нам сидеть по хатам, дайте коня мне да добрый меч. Так в наши хаты пришла беда, жаркая сеча была да-да, а мы не знали, не ожидали, жили, любили, детей рожали. Ой, да неужто русская рать не постоит за родину мать? Били, рубили, ворога добили и победили черную тать. И засияло небо голубое, полная чаша мира до покоя. А кто пожалует к нам с войною? Дайте коня мне да добрый меч. Ой, что-то мы засиделись, братцы, не пора ли нам разгуляться? Русь молодая, силы немерено, дайте коня мне да добрый меч. Ратью пойдем да погоним ворога, Русь молодая, сердцу дорога. Да не пристало нам сидеть по хатам, дайте коня мне да добрый меч.
Loading complete. Loading complete.
control de municiones no letales, las cuales pueden causar el riesgo de heridas a los que permanezcan. By order of the City of Pittsburgh Chief Police, I hereby declare this to be an unlawful assembly. By order of the City of Pittsburgh Chief Police, I hereby declare this to be an unlawful assembly. I order all those assembled to immediately disperse. You must leave the immediate vicinity. If you remain in this immediate vicinity, you will be in violation of the Pennsylvania Crimes Code, no matter what your purpose is.
They don't make any noise and they are invisible. Some are visible, some are, just outside. You have, in the infrared range. What's emerging now are laser weapons, where the effect is that of the laser. And they can be hole burners, what we call very high energy laser, because with the concentrated energy, you can literally drill holes, in a target.
Go home, Mick! Go home! Go home, Mick! Go home!
As you can see, the effect of ADS immediately distracts and disrupts the group's activities. The ADS crew continues to engage the demonstrators, repelling them until the group moves away and is no longer a threat.
The research and certainly the concepts for direct energy weapons go back many decades. What is happening is that the technology has now advanced sufficiently that we're starting to see the weapons come into fruition. In other words, they're becoming real. There are several types of directed energy weapons, and basically what they do is they're known as speed of light because they shoot electrons very fast over very long distances. Lasers, of course, are in the light range. Then there's microwave weapons that are operating at other frequencies, but basically they're beam weapons in which nothing physical goes out. The electrons move, but the kinetic weapons you talk about, you're shooting big bullets to go out and physically hit and destroy something. These work because the energy is disposed on the target and causes some effect.
Can I ask you a question about some of the technology that you're developing to fight the war on terror, specifically directed energy and high-powered microwave technology? When do you envision that you can weaponize that type of technology?
Goodness, it is in, for the most part, the kinds of things you're talking about are in varying early stages. Do you have anything you'd add?
I don't think I would add much. I think they are in early stages and probably not ready for employment at this point.
In the normal order of things, when you invest in research and development and begin a developmental project, you don't have any intention or expectations that one would use it. On the other hand, the real world intervenes from time to time, and you reach in there and take something out that is still in a developmental stage, and you might use it. So your question's not answerable. It depends on what happens in the future and how well things move along the track and whether or not someone feels it's appropriate to reach into a development stage and see if something might be useful, as was the case with the unmanned aerial vehicles.
But you sound like you're willing to experiment with it.
Yeah, I think that's the point, and I think, we have, I think, from the beginning of this conflict, I think General Franks has been very open to looking at new things if there are new things available, and has been willing to put them into the fight even before they've been fully wrung out. And I think that's not referring to these two particular cases of directed energy or high-powered microwave, but sure. And
yes.
We will continue to do that.
As human test subjects, we will examine one facet of the arsenal of these non-lethal weapons. Cyclotronic resonance refers to the ability to resonate or spin small particles with a given resonance frequency. Military doctrine for non-lethal weapons in this area is as follows. Initially, enemy armies or populations can be exposed to, sprayed with, a very small amount of chemical or biological agent. The quantity of chemical or biological agent used may be so small as to be virtually undetectable. Following exposure, the enemy population may be targeted with microwave or radio frequency radiation in the exact resonance frequency of the chemical or biological agent used. The toxic agent will begin to resonate or spin and will react with much greater speed or activity within the bodies of the target population, similar to the behavior of enzymes that make life possible. This greater reactivity may be millions of times greater than normal and would behave as if the person had been given a massive dose of chemical or biological agent, enough in fact to cause death. Cyclotronic resonance of chemical and biological agents allows entire armies or populations to be destroyed with only minute amounts of the agent in their bodies if they are attacked with non-lethal microwave weapons afterwards. It will be impossible to develop and deploy such a weapon without first testing it. These tests are actually being done on American citizens in their own homes. This is just one aspect of the non-lethal weapons testing that is being done on several thousand people